falls on the letter Gimel. The boys said it was curious how Benny won. They kept putting down their money. He took on their bets. What did he care? He was a rich boy. "Gimel again? It's curious!" they cried, and again opened their purses and staked their money. Benny whirled the top. It spun round and round, and wobbled from side to side like a drunkard, and fell down. "Gimel," said Benny. "Gimel, Gimel, again Gimel! It's extraordinary," said the boys, scratching their heads and again opening their purses. The game grew more exciting. The players grew hot, staked their money, crushed one another, and dug one another in the ribs to get nearer the table, and called each other peculiar names: "Black Tomcat," "Creased Cap," "Split Coat," and the like. They did not see the teacher standing behind them in his woollen cap and coat, and carrying his tallis and tefillin under his arm. He was going to the synagogue to say his prayers, and seeing the crowd of excited boys, he drew near to watch the play. This day he does not interfere. It is Chanukah. We are free for 8 days on end, and may play as much as we like. But we must not fight nor pull one another by the nose. The teacher's wife took her sickly child in her arms and stood at her husband's shoulder, watching the boys risk their money, and how Benny took on all the bets. Benny was excited, burning, aflame, ablaze. He whirled the top. It spun round and round, wobbled and fell down. "Gimel, all over again! It's a regular pantomime." Benny showed us his smartness and his quick-wittedness so long until our pockets were empty. He thrust his hands into his pockets as if challenging us. "Well, who wants more?" We all went home. We carried away with us the heartache and the shame of our losses. When we got home we had to tell lies to account for the loss of the money we had been given in honour of Chanukah. One boy confessed he had spent his on locust beans. Another said the money had been stolen out of his pocket the previous night. A third came home crying. He said he had bought himself a pocket knife. Well, why was he crying? He had lost the knife on his way home. I told my mother a fine story, a regular Arabian Nights tale, and got out of her a second Chanukah present of 10 groshens. I ran off with them to Benny, played for 5 minutes, lost to him, and flew back home and told my mother another tale. In a word, brains were at work and heads were busy inventing lies. Lies flew about like chaff in the wind, and all our Chanukah money went into Benny's pockets and was lost to us for ever. One of the boys became so absorbed in the play that he was not satisfied to lose only his Chanukah money, but went on gambling through the whole 8 days of the festival. And that boy was no other than myself, the widow's son. You must not ask where the widow's boy got the money to play with. The great gamblers of the world who have lost and won fortunes, estates and inheritances, they will know and understand. Woe is me! May the hour never be known on which the evil spirit of gambling takes hold of one. There is nothing too hard for him. He breaks into houses, gets through iron walls, and does the most terrible thing imaginable. It's a name to conjure with, the spirit of gambling. First of all I began to make money by selling everything I possessed, one thing after the other: my pocket knife, my purse, and all my buttons. I had a box that opened and closed, and some wheels of an old clock, good brass wheels that shone like the sun when they were polished. I sold them all at any price, flew off, and lost all my money to Benny. I always left him with a heart full of wounds and the bitterest annoyance, and greatly excited. I was not angry with Benny, God forbid. What had I against him? How was he to blame if he always won at play? If the top fell on the Gimel for me, he said I should win. If it falls on the Gimel for him, then he wins. And he is quite right. No, I am only sorry for myself for having run through so much money, my mother's hard-earned groshens, and for having made away with all my things. I was left almost naked. I even sold my little prayer book. Oh, that prayer book, that prayer book! When I think of it my heart aches and my face burns with shame. It was an ornament, not a book. My mother bought it of Petachaya, the pedlar, on the anniversary of my father's death, and it was a book of books, a good one, a real good one, thick and full of everything. It had every prayer one could mention, the Song of Songs, the Ethics of the Fathers, and the Psalms, and the Haggadah, and all the prayers of the whole year round. Then the print and the binding and the gold lettering, it was full of everything, I tell you. Each time Petachaya the pedlar came round, with his cut moustache that made his careworn face appear as if it were smiling, each time he came round and opened his pack outside the synagogue door, I could not take my eyes off that prayer book. "What would you say, little boy?" asked Petachaya, as if he did not know that I had my eyes on the prayer book, and had had it in my hand 17 times, each time asking the price of it. "Nothing," I replied, "just so," and I left him, so as not to be tempted. "Ah, mother, you should see the fine thing Petachaya the pedlar has." "What sort of a thing?" asked my mother. "A little prayer book. If I had such a prayer book, I don't know myself what I would do." "Haven't you got a prayer book? And where is your father's prayer book?" "You can't compare them. This is an ornament, and my book is only a book." "An ornament?" repeated my mother. "Are there then more than prayers in an ornamental book? Or do the prayers sound better? Well, can you explain an ornament to your mother? A really fine book with red covers and blue edges and a green back." "Come," said my mother to me one evening, taking me by the hand, "come with me to the synagogue. Tomorrow is the anniversary of your father's death. We will bring candles to be lit for him, and at the same time we will see what sort of a prayer book it is that Petachaya has." I knew beforehand that on the anniversary of the death of my father I could get from my mother anything I asked for, even to the little plate from heaven, as the saying is, and my heart beat with joy. When we got to the synagogue we found Petachaya with his pack still unopened. You must know Petachaya was a man who never hurried. He knew very well he was the only man at the fair. His customers would never leave him. Before he opened his pack and spread out his goods, it took a year. I trembled, I shook, I could hardly stand on my feet. And he did not care. It was as if we were not talking to him at all. "Let me see what sort of a prayer book it is you have," said my mother. Petachaya had plenty of time. The river was not on fire. Slowly, without haste, he opened his pack and spread out his wares. Big Bibles, little prayer books for men and for women, big psalm books and little, and books for all possible occasions without an end. Then there were books of tales from the Talmud, tales from the Baal Shem Tov, books of sermons and books of devotion. I imagined he would never run short. He was a well, a fountain. At last he came to the little books and handed out the one I wanted. "Is this all?" asked my mother. "Such a little one." "This little one is dearer than a big one," answered Petachaya. "And how much do you want for the little squirrel? God forgive me for calling it by that name." "You call a prayer book a squirrel?" asked Petachaya. He took the book slowly out of her hand, and my heart was torn. "Well, say, how much is it?" asked my mother, but Petachaya had plenty of time. He answered her in a sing-song voice. "How much is the little prayer book? It will cost you, I'm afraid it is not for your purse." My mother cursed her enemies that they might have black hideous dreams, and asked him to say how much. Petachaya stated the price. My mother did not answer him. She turned towards the door, took my hand and said to me, "Come, let us go. We have nothing to do here. Don't you know that Reb Petachaya is a man